Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to this meeting, the Bristol Airport Expansion, The Truth. I'm delighted to see so many of you here and delighted to welcome our speakers. First of all, say who I am. I'm Nicola Ainger. I'm from Chew and I'm chairing tonight's meeting. With me, I've got 6 fantastic speakers who've given up their evening to come and help us understand the truth about the airport expansion. In order where everybody's sitting, Jill Rawlings, Chair of Wrington Parish Council, the parish within which the airport is located. Tongi Tomes, who's a Bristol-based environmental consultant, who's going to talk to us about carbon mitigation this evening. John Adams is Emeritus Professor of Bristol University, co-director and founder of Stop Bristol Airport Expansion Alliance, and with him is Scarlett Vester, who's a student at Chew Valley and a member of Stop Bristol Airport Expansion Alliance. Hilary Burns is the chair of the Parish Council's Airport Association. And our final speaker this evening will be Ben Moss, who is a Chew Valley landowner and member of Extinction Rebellion. So all our guests this evening will speak for about 10 minutes each, and we're going to ask you to hold your questions until the end. Which will mean the presentation should finish at about 8:45, and then hopefully we'll finish the meeting by 9:30, depending on how the questions go. First of all, I'll just start with Jill, who's going to talk to us about the airport expansion.
So earlier this year, we actually held a couple of meetings to explain to anybody who wanted to come, but obviously primarily people in the village, what was happening and what were the component parts of the planned expansion. And we showed people the documents and the maps, which covered huge, I don't know if you've ever seen the volume of paperwork that it involves, but you put out tables like that, and they are covered. And we have had to go through them line by line to actually understand it. And none of the parish councillors are actually specialists on planning. We've all had to learn a hell of a lot in a very fast period of time. And a couple of weeks ago, we had a similar meeting again in Wrington that was similar to tonight's. And I was invited to speak, and I was glad to do so because a lot of the parishioners may have thought that we'd gone quiet and we'd just done the meetings and that was the end of it, parish council job done. But in fact, the reality has been that since Christmas, when the airport kind of suddenly at the Christmas period put in their planning application, our leads within the council, the people who've dedicated themselves to it, have spent, without exaggeration, about 2,000 hours analysing all the paperwork, as well as some ancillary consultations that are going on, which also need to be considered as part and parcel of Bristol Airport. So, if you like, the wider aerospace industry and some of the rules and the changes that are proposed. So it's been a hell of a job. Now, one of the things we decided as a parish council, because we are a parish council representing our voters, is that we had to take the emotion out of that which we do. Individually, we may have our own views. I, as a grandmother, have been living in the village for what seems like forever. I'm concerned about illegal parking. I'm concerned about pollution. I don't want it to happen. But I have to put the emotion out of it because, as a parish councillor, we have to put forward cogent arguments based on facts, figures, and countering any lies that we find. And sadly, I'm afraid we've found a few. So anybody sitting here will actually know of that, and I'm sure one or two of you may also know of those yourselves. So, of course, the things that we've done, as you would expect, we've contacted our local MP, Liam Fox, who now may have a little bit more time since yesterday, and also John Penrose from Weston-super-Mare, and Jacob Rees-Mogg. We've written to the colleagues, that's the wrong term, in Canada, who have an interest, and I know John will talk about them, I believe, a little later on, and also to the Canadian Minister of Education, who sits on the board of this particular organisation that's benefiting from all the profits. So she didn't actually reply, not even an acknowledgement. We're also hoping to brief some of all these new councillors at North Somerset Council, which we hope will actually change the balance of, shall we say, the balance of interest in the airport, particularly since some of the things that are likely to change beyond the planning application, they need to know because it's likely to affect their constituents well away from here. So there's things they ought to know which they didn't realise they did. So in addition to the planning application, we have been responding to the government's green paper on Aviation 2015, the future of aviation. And last week we met with the Independent Commission on Civil Aviation Noise, ICAN, very catchy title. We met the Commissioner, who's new, who has Luton, Gatwick and Bristol in his remit. And we've discussed our views on the Commission's first corporate strategy. And you think, oh, you know, how boring. But we need to build relationships with these people because these people can affect the operation of Bristol Airport. We also want to build a relationship with the Civil Aviation Authority. We're currently responding to 2 consultation papers, both enormous and very technical, even though they're supposed to be for ordinary folk in communities. But you wouldn't believe it when you read the stuff. One is on airspace changes, and then there's an allied one on the decision-making process for planned and permanent redistribution of air traffic, which again sounds very boring. But these very weighty documents are incredibly important, and I think there's something that we have to be worried about. So Bristol Airport has quietly, without consulting or informing anyone, not Parish Council or anybody else, has applied to change its airspace use. Now I'm going to try and explain it without getting into sort of making aeroplane noises as one goes along. I tend to get a bit over-enthusiastic. Try not to do a Boris Johnson. But currently all planes take off from the airport travelling in a straight line for approximately 5 miles before turning for the various routes, whether they go south or north or wherever they're going. They're legally regulated to do this. They have to follow this particular pathway. But the airport, with its aspiration to increasing the number of flights, and passengers obviously, will have to find a way to maximise the opportunities to increase the number of arrivals and departures on its single runway. So how's it planning to do it? Well, if the current rules are relaxed, and the airport in its application has put in 0 detail, and that's a problem. Currently, we do not know. They could increase the number of flights by by being able to turn much earlier than 5 miles. So imagine this on full throttle. They are climbing and curving over many more villages than they do right now. So the noise, as you can imagine, is going to be, if I use the word interesting, you know that's a euphemism. The consultation paper to which this relates says it should be planned over less populous areas. Well, if you look at the maps for the routes, and I think, John, did I see you put up on
I've got a flight path.
Right, okay, so that's coming up. What you'll see then, in the flights in and out are limited quite considerably at Bristol Airport by the amount of military no-fly zones, particularly to the south and over Wales, bits of Gloucestershire where the royals live, so they mustn't be disturbed, and of course we've got the Mendips. So what's left? Well, just look at yourselves. Here in Chew Magna, you may think that changes in takeoff won't actually affect you a great deal. Certainly in Wrington it will. But where there's a takeoff, there's a landing. And so this is where you may be more interested. Currently, the aircraft join is what's called a glide scope. I've been learning a lot recently. I've been getting very friendly with somebody in the aircraft business. During peak hours, aircraft enter this holding pattern, as I'm sure you probably know, stacking in a spiral. We all know about that. And then they peel off and enter the glide scope at 2,500 feet over Felton, where it connects with the automatic beacons that brings them into land. Doesn't seem to involve pilots much, but anyway, I hope it does. And as it was explained to me, that if a plane is coming in on the glide scope, and a faster plane, so EasyJet or Ryanair, then want to come in and zip in because they're under great time pressure, even more than other aircraft, then they can jump in and get in at greater speed. They nip in front. So we need to know where those stacks are planned to be, because the pressure to get those planes in and out in greater numbers will necessitate tighter, noisier curves to get into position. So remember that when you're thinking about the expansion planning. It isn't just expansion planning. And let's not forget that the airport is seeking to expand its operational boundary. Now, if it's sanctioned, it opens the doors to undertake more work without seeking planning permission. Now, you and I, if we want to build an extension or anything in our house, have to go through great swathes of planning applications, and it costs a flipping fortune. But if you extend your operational boundary, you get a thing called permitted development rights. So let me give you a quick example. On the A38, the big roundabout by the Silver Zone, where they've concreted acres and acres of lovely green fields, there is a new building. It's the admin block. That was built under permitted development rights. No planning permission was required. And you know that huge barber's pole? I haven't worked out what that's for. Does anybody know what it's for?
It's telecom.
Oh, right. So that didn't need development rights either. And the airport has also very quietly bought several tracts of woodland near their boundary. Wonder what they're going to do with that. I know there's some bats somewhere, but I think we need more newts, bats, and other things. So getting back to facts and figures, which is what we're interested in within our parish council. We'll use facts and figures that others can provide. So CPRE, Campaign for Protection of Rural England. As it happens, I also, with another hat, I'm Secretary of the regional area for CPRE. And they have just invested in an independent study by the New Economics Foundation into the economic case that the airport has put forward. They're analysing, if you like, the facts. We understand, because it's going to be published next month, not this month, but we understand so far from the foundation's work, the report is likely to cast significant doubts on three things: the scale of the claimed economic benefits, the methodology used to calculate them, and on the way the proposal relate to the wider national aviation policy. Pretty damning. So we wait to see them next month, and when we get them, of course, we will be very interested in using those as extra evidence accordingly. Let's not forget that the airport wants 12 million passengers a year by the 2020s. As the population in the UK is projected to be just over 67 million at that time, because I looked it up yesterday, thank God for Google, that means that each year, 17.91% of the entire population of the United Kingdom will be travelling down the A38 and the A370. Doesn't that fill you with glee? We'll actually all get ice creams out and sell them along the road because it'll be just one solid jam. And of course, it will all be carbon neutral. Doesn't that also make you feel relaxed about it? Because that's the aspiration of the airport that they announced in a press release yesterday, day before. Their aspirations are for 2025. Wonderful. But of course, they can't control road traffic. You know, people are driving down 370 and the A38. But they're going to do their best to do their bit about all the problems of the road traffic. They're going to institute carbon offset on road transport. Not those who come and park in their car park, generating income. No, no, no. They will actually charge a carbon levy for people who are dropping off at the express drop-off. So it doesn't stop the carbon, but they charge you for it. Doesn't that make you feel relieved? That's great. You know, when I read that, actually I had to laugh because it's just so nonsensical that, you know, they're not going to stop their revenue, but they're sure as hell going to charge you more. And then, I'm sure you know the phrase, there are three kinds of lies. And I did mention earlier that we refute anything we discover is an absolute lie. And the three kinds of lies are lies, damned lies, and statistics. Well, you might have seen an online poll that was printed by the BBC that showed that 73% of regional residents back proposals to expand the airport. And that, for us, could be a game changer. After all, we represent our constituents. 73% is a hell of a lot. Perhaps we, the parish council, have been misrepresenting our parishioners. We've got a population of about 3,000 in Wrington. And when I looked at Wikipedia for Chew Magna, 2011 was the latest, it said about 1,000 people. I'm sure you've got lots more since. And I guess there's Felton and Backwell and lots more. So a large number of residents, of those, you know, residents who must have been asked their views. So we did some digging. And it turns out that A, the poll was sponsored by the airport, quelle surprise, and B, the numbers of people involved was 271. So that's 197.83 people support the airport's expansion in the whole of the region. Game changer? No. Sadly, it's still game on. Thank you very much indeed.